Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
There's a hole in your mind.
What do you want?
No one here is exactly what he appears.
Always the same.
Commander Sinclair is being reassigned.
Why don't you eliminate the entire non-human?
I see a great hand reaching out of the stars.
President Clark has signed a decree today declaring martial law.
Forced us to declare independence.
Weapons, supplies.
You are the one who was.
Why are you here? Do you have anything worth living for?
Think of the beautiful city of flames.
Now get the hell out of our galaxy!
We are here to place President Clark under arrest.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Filibuster. I'm Philip Gilfus, and after much delay, mostly due to a faulty jump gate, I'm here with my co-host, Charlynn Schmiedt.
Yo! We're back, finally! It's so good.
Yes, we are continuing part 5 of our 6-part Babylon 5 series. And just because, like we said, part 5, we're going to be talking about season 5. So if you have missed any that we've done before, we have done seasons 1 through 4 of Babylon 5, one of our favorite shows. Not just sci-fi, but of all time, really. Now, Shar, I know you didn't you start with season 5? I believe it was your story.
Yeah, for a little bit of backstory, I started watching Babylon 5 a little concurrently with season 5 as it aired on TNT, and then alongside the reruns, because they were going through at the same time with season 1. So I was getting the backstory as well as season 5 all at once until I finally caught up. And oh gosh, I want to say by maybe April, I had caught up because they started airing in January and it took about a month per season. And then I was on track, live and present with season 5.
One of the original bingers, Charlynn Schmiedt.
Not necessarily. I wasn't there during the real lifetime run, but we do have somebody who was.
That's right. Now, season 5, and I'm not projecting any, but for some people, season 5 can be a little controversial, given that season 5 almost didn't happen. There was a cancellation scare at the end of season 4. And in fact, they filmed the finale. That's how scared they were. And we'll talk about that later. But season 5 sort of was like, oh, I guess we are doing this, and it changed to TNT. And a lot of fans, or some fans, I won't say a lot, some fans were a little disappointed maybe about season 5, and so I think that's where I came from. And so in order to prevent my negativity from clouding this episode, we have brought on a season 5 cheerleader, and that is Mr. Norman Lao.
Oh my gosh, guys, thank you so much for having me on this show because I am so excited to be here to talk Babylon 5 in general with you, let alone season 5.
Oh,
Yes.
We're so excited to have you. For one thing, yes, you are a season 5 cheerleader, and we knew that a long time coming, and we've wanted to have you on for a filibuster, and we thought, what better season than season 5 since you do love it? And just, thank you so much for joining us because the more Babylon 5 talk, the better. This one could potentially go all night, so we're going to have to be concise.
Right.
So get your choice of drink, maybe a box of tissues. We're going to go a long journey into this. This is going to be the very long, dark night.
Into sleeping in light or maybe awake in light. I'm not sure. Right. Yeah.
We will ask forgiveness for someone at the end of this. And before we get into the meaty topics, I just want to talk about something very basic. We don't usually go this way. The intro. I remember, because I did watch Babylon 5 live. I forget which season I started. 3, maybe it was even as late as 4, or maybe as early as 2. I can't remember. It wasn't season 1. I know that. But anyway, I remember when season 5 started. Again, it's on TNT, but I'm watching there as however old I am at the time. And that first intro comes on, and I'm like, oh my bejesus. I'm just like jaws dropping to the floor as they're just flashing. The years go by and the quotes, and oh my God, they're built. It's like watching a movie intro of Babylon 5. Like, guys, we know the journey we've been to. Let's keep on going.
It's a nice little recap of everything that has happened. And if you've been with the show up to this point, I think you have a huge appreciation for this particular theme. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I mean, I go back and forth all the time. Like, as I'm going through the seasons, season 3 is my favorite. Season 4 is my favorite. No. Season 5 is my favorite. I mean, they're all good for what they are, but this one is just such a nice little capsule of everything that's happened before. I don't know. I think it's hard not to appreciate that, but then I think about my husband who hears the theme when I'm watching Babylon 5, and he's like, what is that? It's awful. Make it stop. And I'm like, who are you? I know. Isn't that sad? What do you guys think of the theme?
Well, for me, just to give you your listeners, a little bit of my background history with Babylon 5, I watched it when it started. So on USA, they had what was called the Action Pack. When they introduced 4 shows, they introduced Babylon 5 with The Gathering pilot, and this is before The Gathering got re-edited. This was with a lot of the weirdness that was going on. They also had a show called Bandit, which was a show about Smokey and the Bandit. They had a show called Vanishing Sun, which starred Russell Wong, about a kung fu master from China who escaped Beijing and wanted to look for his long-lost brother. It was kind of like a kung fu for like the 1990s. And then the last show of Action Pack was a small fan favorite. You may have heard it, called Hercules. The Adventure Continues. This is all the way back. This was 1992 when it first came out.
So 2 of those shows survived, more or less.
Yeah, Babylon 5 and then Hercules went way off, and then it spun off into Xena. So that's when I started with it. And I love the intros because you're right, Char. They all kind of encapsulate what the season is about. It went from all the way when Michael O'Hare, with his long diatribe of 2,500 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night, like that is very dramatic.
Nice impression.
Right, and then to
the
this,
spinning heads of season 2,
right? Exactly. And then they introduced Warren Keffer, and like everyone's like, who's this Hottie McToddy pilot that
who's this punk?
Michael Straczynski didn't really sign on for. So then it goes into season 3. It's like we failed, and then everything was like, again, it described the season, and then all of a sudden season 5 was very triumphant because you're right. Again, it's all about where we were and all the seasons that led up to this. And some of the most significant quotes or signature quotes, like "There's a hole in your mind," that was all the way back from The Gathering, at the very end.
Now get the hell out of our galaxy.
Yeah, it's like Giants of the Playground. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, all the good stuff. Right. Yes. And all the good visuals. You have the reveal of Delenn and just, not everything, but everything.
You had,
everything.
You get the Sinclair, the one who was.
Right. The battle scene, Severed Dreams, when like some of the Star Furies are about to hit Babylon 5's, Docking Bay, all of that stuff.
The Narns getting hit.
Exactly, yeah. So all of that stuff, I think they created this particular opening for season 5, not to catch everyone up per se, but to tell the fans that have kind of championed this all the way through that we are paying particular attention to our history moving forward, so we can get you all caught up to this point and get you revved up and charged, because that's what it does.
Yeah, it's certainly the best made, I think.
Yeah, I've just, maybe because I'm doing too much Star Trek, but like to me, Babylon 5 is one of the few sci-fi series, or maybe even series as a whole, that are year specific. Like they will mention, hey, remember in 2258, or remember in 2260, or in 20, and it's like they know their years.
Yeah, they actually reference that a little bit. Yeah, it's true.
So let's get into it. So season 5. I know there's so much to cover, but let's just start. Basically, is the season that never was is now is, and you know what?
That was good. I like that. You're the season who was.
That's a little clever.
Right.
Yep.
We're going to introduce new elements, right? Changes.
Yeah.
Why not?
A few, including.
I'm not going to refer. Yeah.
Yeah, like starting right off, change in CEO. Right off the bat.
And I believe the term is Esri Daxing it. But anyway, so...
Hey!
Well, so let's start with here. So we have Captain Elizabeth Lockley is now the new CEO of Babylon 5 because Ivanova left and we're not very happy about it. But anyway, and so...
No, we were... certainly at the time when the show was airing and I'd figured out who Ivanova was, I was pissed. Yeah, I'll be downright honest. I was not happy because I love, and I especially loved back then, Susan Ivanova. She was my girl. That's who I wanted to be. And then she was gone? Are you kidding? And then she's getting replaced by, who's this chick?
Well, I mean,
who is this chick? Indeed.
At the end of season 4, they left you with so much not underdeveloped, but untapped potential between what happened with her emotionally with Marcus and their story, their unrequited love moving forward. Then all of a sudden, snap, it goes to Tracy Scoggins. I want to make sure that everyone knows that Captain Elizabeth Lockley was cast as Tracy Scoggins or vice versa. And she was not unfamiliar to a lot of fandom at the time. She was doing a lot. She came off of Lois and Clark. She was Kat. She's a huge fan favorite star. So it's not like it was jarring, but it was jarring at the same time.
Yes.
I think certainly at the time it was jarring just because I think it was another female and it was another tough female, which, I mean, Ivanova, that's one of her strong qualities and we love her for it. And yet, so it was like, okay, are you just trying to replace Ivanova with this other character? And that came off a little wrong. It took a long time when the show was airing for her to grow on me. And I'll tell you guys later exactly when that turned for me.
Now, Norm, you're our cheerleader, so you tell us, Captain Lockley, what do you think? What do you like?
Defend her.
Yeah.
Well, with Lockley, I think that they wrote her correctly because she did make a lot of fans bristle when she came on board. She rubbed a lot of people, not just the fans, but the characters, all the wrong way. And she did have a lot of history with Sheridan, and they made that known, which is why Sheridan kind of picked her.
Man,
okay,
that one,
right?
I'm groaning so
Right.
hard.
I thought you were defending Norman. You're not. You're
No, I mean this is the truth though, and they were
they
were formerly married, didn't work out, and that's fine. But what I liked about her was she didn't become an Ivanova clone that they just wanted to insert in the series. She actually had her very own specific character qualities, especially with Garibaldi, that I thought made their relationship really interesting, especially where Garibaldi was concerned about his alcoholism in this series, right? And that moment, I don't want to jump too much, but there was a moment between the two where...
You can.
Well, there was a confrontation, and Char, maybe this might have been the moment, but there was a confrontation between Lockley and Garibaldi, and she called him on the carpet and saying, like, you know what, you got to get your stuff together because I was in the exact same place. I got my stuff together, and I was able to move forward. And she called him on it. Like, she didn't back down. She said, you know what, I have this chip that I carry with me because I know who you are. I'm an alcoholic and a user myself. And that almost destroyed me, and it's destroying you. I'm not going to let that happen on my station. So that point where, okay, this is where all this kind of upfront toughness comes. Also, she is coming into a very unfamiliar territory and scenario, and she has to make sure that I'm the commander of this station. I'm Earth Alliance. You are all independent contractors or Interstellar Alliance, right? You are not Earth Alliance. This is my station. And everyone was like,
right.
How dare you? How dare you replace Ivanova? Oh, what, you're not really replacing Ivanova. And
you make a very good case, Norm.
That's the way I saw it. I know a lot of fans didn't because we loved Claudia Christian as Ivanova and where she came from. And we didn't, and we just, our love for her got cut off right at the knees. And
maybe it was the abruptness that made it so harsh.
Yeah.
And I mean, behind the scenes, it's contract negotiations and things that are just beyond the actual show's the storyline's control, honestly. But
it's called being Jadzia Daxed.
But they did
they
did kind of mention that in the episode with Mac and Bo.
Oh yeah,
there was a little
dig
dig there.
Listen to rumors, Bo.
Yeah, there was a little dig there, but
I loved that so much. But Norm, you're absolutely right. That was the moment when Lockley is confronting Garibaldi that I fell in love with her. I'm like, okay, she is her own person. This is why she's so tough. This is why she is the way she is. I love the fact now that she speaks her mind. And I mean, having gone back now, I have a completely different appreciation for this character. But during that initial run, this is the moment, right as you were describing it, that made me turn on her and, well, not turn on her, but turn to her.
Of course,
and come on her side and realize, you know what? Okay, maybe I was wrong. And maybe now I like her and I understand a whole lot more about her because we finally got that backstory that we needed so desperately. Between that and Day of the Dead,
right,
where she meets her old friend Zoe, from the drug addict days, that made her a more complete character. And that's what I needed.
Right. I think the part with that scene we're talking about, which is very great, and it's good for her, it's good for Garibaldi, but it's like, There's 5 episodes left, guys. I mean, I'm glad we came to the party and gave her a moment, but that would have been great about, 10 episodes ago. Because I think what you said, Norm, and it's nothing with Tracy's, how she played the part, she played it fine, but they sort of like stacked the deck against her. And even apart from the Ivanova stuff, like you said, she's Earth Alliance. She doesn't appreciate, quote unquote, any of our characters, right? She fought against the other side. The married to Sheridan thing was like, what? I mean, I get it that you needed a weird connection for Sheridan to want her specifically, or why he would trust her implicitly.
But would it have to be that? That's always my question.
But I mean, when it first aired,
right
now I'm like, because I know it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's.
You know what? Going back, I've gotten a little softer on that whole thing, and it's because it's not written horribly. I mean,
right.
it's kind of a logical step with one misgiving. Why was there never ever a hint that Sheridan was married more to one other person besides Delenn? That's the one thing that I have. Yeah, like, okay, he was married to Anna. We knew all about her, and then there was, because I guess it was such a short-lived marriage, he never ever mentions this little I guess it should have just been a fling with Elizabeth Lockley. Yeah. So that's what was so weird about it.
That Tracy is obviously I don't know the terms. You'll correct me, listeners. But basically, is a main character, main actor, because she's on the titles. Half the episodes, I swear, she's in, if that. And so, you have almost like a featured player is the commander of Babylon 5. And so I feel like that hurts her. And, there's so many characters, of course, but I feel like there's so many episodes where they mention, yeah, I'll go tell Captain Lockley. And, doesn't appear the whole episode. So I think that kind of hurts her because, like an Esri Dax, you're wanting us to invest in a new character in the last season, which is a challenge, not unsurmountable. And like I said, they do give her a lot of stuff. Like Day of the Dead, as you mentioned, we get this backstory. I guess it's the investment problem. Like, do I care? But I think it's a great part for her. What do you guys think? And maybe because I read too much into things, what is her and Zoe's relationship? Just good friends, or
I think because I think in the Day of the Dead episode when Zoe came out and in the Berkiri kind of controlled magical space, they were I know that Elizabeth Lockley was kind of rebelling against her father, who was kind of like this high-up admiral in Earth Alliance. So she was doing the whole rebellion thing. I think Zoe was her friend, and they just kind of fed off of each other. And I think that it's because Zoe overdosed and Lockley found her. It's like, okay, my best friend just died. This is not the right path for me. I'm rebelling for absolutely really no specific reason aside from making sure that my father is embarrassed by my behavior. But that's not good enough anymore to jeopardize my future the way that Zoe just ended hers.
The reason I ask is because when I watched it the first time and the second time and even this time, I'm like, is it supposed to be romantic? Because I could see it both ways.
Oh, I didn't see it like that at all. No, I just thought they were kind of partners in crime. They were both drug addicts. They were both just trying to survive. And honestly, I think Lockley was just trying to run away from her alcoholic father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who ended up becoming exactly what she hated. As she says to Garibaldi, she fell down the same path, not having any other tools to do otherwise. And so I just saw her relationship with Zoe as just friendship and trying to just survive.
Yeah, I think they were literally clinging on to each other in every emotional aspect because they were the only ones who really understood each other. And they were very dependent on each other. To the point where I didn't really see it romantically. I saw it. They were dependent on each other soulfully. They got each other, and we're the only ones that understand what we're going through right now. And I think that's where that step where she was able to confide that in Garibaldi, not her situation with Zoe, but why she saw Garibaldi in such a way, why they butt heads so much. Because she says, I know exactly who you are, because I'm you. And, and I got over it. So you know what? You got over it too, because you got a bigger job and you got way more responsibility and you got to just suck it up and get over yourself because I did. So you can too. And that was the moment I was like, yeah, let's see what this character is all about.
She's
definitely tough. That is for sure.
And I think, again, it was interesting to see her relationship to characters that at the beginning, when she has problems with Garibaldi, and is uneasy about certain things or characters that we like, but then not likes is a strong word, but is fine with working with Bester and the Psi Corps because she's so like Earth government, and so
Right.
I think you're writing a lot of things against that character for fans who are invested. They're like, no. But I mean, again, I think nothing against Tracy, but I think she sort of had, as the character, had all these sort of bricks being written against her for fans. It made it hard to be like, well, yay, she's the captain.
I think that's a lot of credit to how much we loved Ivanova and how invested we were with her, or are with her, because you can't replace her. And everyone that saw Tracy were like, or Lockley, they were like, why do I want to now invest in her? Because she doesn't mean anything to me, right? Emotionally.
Yeah, and she's on the other side of every other issue that we've cared about the last 4 seasons. That said, though, it's really good to bring in the other perspective. Now that the war is over, what were people thinking on the other side? That's what Lockley represents. And looking back now in the rewatch, I see how good that is and how valuable that is, because there were other people on the other side and they weren't all bad.
Sure.
Right.
So we needed that kind of representation.
I mean, think of all the people that were fighting in the Civil War, like people like on the Roanoke, or like in Severed Dreams when there were a lot of ships that were being destroyed. That was the pain and kind of like the drama of that Civil War. There were people on Babylon 5 that knew people on those other ships. Even Sheridan's like, surrender. Don't destroy yourselves. Let us take prisoners. We're not your enemy. The government is being pulled apart by the forces of like the Shadow Government and Clark, but we're brothers and sisters in arms. We fought against each other against the Dilgar. Right, so don't do this, right? And Lockley could have,
the Great Dilgar War,
and Lockley could have been on one of those ships, very easily. She could have been a captain of one of those Hyperion class destroyers, and that's the whole thing. Now we're resettling, like the American Civil War, and all the brothers and sisters are trying to come together and trying to figure out, why did you do this? Why did you? Because from Lockley's perspective, I honored the commission that I was given for Earth Alliance. This is what I believe in. Right, you have a different belief on the frontier, much the way that, say, Cisco versus who is the Maquis leader in the Eddington, right? They both believed that they were doing the right thing. They both wore their uniforms for the right reason, right? But they were on the opposite sides of philosophy. That's the way I saw Lockley and Sheridan, and I think that's why Sheridan trusted her.
Yeah.
Right. And she speaks her mind, which she does very well. She lets that be known from the get-go.
I was also, now look, there's too many characters this season. I know adding another one would just be a recipe for disaster, but just for continuity world building sake, I'm like, who's the XO? There's no who's in charge here, people? Yeah. Where's the chain of command? Lieutenant Corwin? Yeah.
I was thinking it would be more Corwin.
He kind of gets shoved aside when it could have been his moment to shine, but it just didn't happen. So be it.
And there was like that weird kind of misleading romantic notion with Corwin and Lockley where he brought her flowers or something like that.
No, wasn't that Ivanova?
Was it Ivanova? I don't remember. Was it Ivanova?
I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's when she
invited him to
Oh,
his
that's
quarters.
right.
To join the circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Norm, you're replacing Lockley with Ivanova, much like we were trying to.
Emotionally, I think I've done that.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Now, the other new elements is sort of the Alliance, because the shift is kind of going from Earth Alliance personnel in season 1, 2, and 3, and then the Army of Light, I suppose if you want to use that term, in 4, and now we're going to the Alliance. And so we now have President Sheridan, no longer
I like how you stroked your beard when you just said that.
Yes, yeah. I'm wearing my President Sheridan beard.
All about the facial hair. Yeah.
And our characters are all there, but they're sort of just different roles now. And so how do you like, Sheridan in a suit and just the politics? You don't see him in a Star Fury anymore. No more. His pilot days are over.
Indeed. You know what? Okay. Superficially speaking, I love the suit. Dislike the facial hair.
See, I'd totally grow a goatee just for him.
Well, okay, let's talk about the Alliance a little bit, because that in and of itself sets the tone for season 5. The war is over, and you, just by the very virtue of that, cannot match the intensity that we had through, all of seasons 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. So this is great, though, because it actually shows the aftermath. that a lot of shows don't portray. I mean, you have the war and you win and then you're done. Yay, hurrah. But this is everything after that. This is the hard work. Mm-hmm. This is getting people to cooperate. This is getting the alliance to work. And we see the struggles with that. And no, it might not be the most action-packed thing, which is a criticism of season 5. But I think it's good to show that what's happening now is just as important as what happened in years before.
Yeah.
I guess season 5, in narrative terms, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, my French is terrible, be the denouement, right?
Yes.
And and I think that's where maybe the audience wasn't prepared for that, because the way that this was written, it was written as a 5-year arc. And this is the first time ever on TV that a series has been done in this way. So a lot of this stuff is kind of like resolution. And having the Earth Alliance there and seeing the beginnings of it, with the way that Jakar kept rewriting like all the articles and his speech, because Declaration of Principles, and he's like, oh, this is better. But we saw kind of how powerful the Alliance was in season 4's deconstruction of Falling Stars, where they were trying to discredit the Alliance through all of this manipulation.
Right. So
that the Alliance was powerful. And that it went somewhere, especially within the 20 years that Sheridan was alive, past when he was given life by Lorien. So that this is the ember from which the Alliance grew. And it's not very dramatic, and it's not necessarily very impressive, but there are moments in the struggle where Sheridan has to make these really great, and dramatic decisions. Like the whole thing's like, you want a war? Well, you've got a war. Like. Yeah, like that's
totally.
And damn you for making me fulfill
and damn you for
promise.
making me agree to this. So that's
right.
And there's no better Sheridan than angry, screamy Sheridan, right? Because
he makes
Box Leitner has his goatee and the scratchiness of his throat. It all works together, right?
Yeah, it makes for the best speeches, does it not?
He's even apologist for the facial hair, Char. That's how far Norm is going.
Well, remember the facial hair.
I don't know about that.
The facial hair was kind of I guess it was a weird side effect of him being tortured in season 4.
Yeah, because he did the detachable Tom Riker, and then just stayed with the.
It's his badge of courage of surviving the torture. So
I guess so, and Delenn didn't seem to mind. Although in real life, I guess his wife at the time, Melissa Gilbert, who played Anna Sheridan, she hated it. She absolutely detested it. The moment he could take that off, he did. Now we should also mention that season 5, had JMS gotten his way and been guaranteed a whole 5 years, parts of season 4 would have leaked into season 5, and we would have had the cliffhanger of Sheridan being interrogated and then the things happening after that in season 5. So that's why season 4 is so condensed. And that's why newer things and a lot of new things happen in season 5, because he had some things he had to do to get to the end. Mm-hmm. I feel like he knew how he wanted to end it. And so in the middle, we have to have a little bit of a filler. And that's where I feel where maybe the telepaths come in.
Oh boy. Okay, so let's. Oh god.
Let's
get to the telepath.
I'm grabbing my pom poms right now.
Okay, Norm, we need you on this, because even upon the rewatch viewing, I'm still a little cool on the telepaths, and Philip, I'm guessing you are too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we'll go into this. So I feel like the two major plots, if maybe this is just me doing an outline, is the telepaths. That's sort of the main storyline, sort of the first half of season 5. And then the second half, not this is really this clean, but the second half is sort of like the attacks on the Alliance and then the Centauri War. Those are sort of the two main, the big things. There's lots of things going on, but those are two big things. So let's go chronologically with the Byron and the telepaths. So again, Norm, you start us off on a good foundation, and we'll
tear it down.
Well, it was an interesting thing that you side at Byron, but not necessarily the telepath story. Is it the actor that they chose, Robin Atkin Downes? Were you not down with him?
Yeah, with Buddha Jesus. I don't blame the actor ever, because I don't the writing. He's saying the lines, and I don't know if you can act that any differently other than how it was written. Yeah, I guess, especially when you go back to reveal, that Byron was a
bloodhound.
What do they call him? Bloodhound. Thank you. A bloodhound, which I don't see him with that personality. But I get it. that that changed him as a person, but like it's a radical change.
But maybe he was always like that to begin with. You know, that's I'm gonna put a pin in what you're saying because I know that you asked me about championing the telepath war story, and I do, because one of the things that I really liked about the Fallout is exactly what that was. It's fallout from a war. And you have all of the weapons of destruction. Now, remember, the Vorlons have engineered this all the way back to when Babylon 4 went back in time, you know, in B Squared and then War Without End Part 1 and 2. They engineered human telepaths to become weapons in this war. Humans didn't choose this. You know, they were brought into this and manipulated, and then all of a sudden you had like the Ghost in the Machine episode where Bester's lover, you know, she was tapped in. Like all of these telepaths were there.
Unresolved plotline.
True. True. But you have all of these humans, and they didn't choose to be this way. You know, they were manipulated to be this way. And then all of a sudden they served and they were used, and then now what? It's Earth. It's they were left to just fend for themselves. They were cast away. They were thrown away after their use was over. And I liked being exposed to the fallout of this, because the telepaths were like, we won your war for you. And all we want is a place where we can find refuge and peace away from all of this. That's all we're asking. And you can't even give us that? But we won the war for you. Without us, you wouldn't have won against the Shadows. That's a fact.
Yeah, and I think Lita, both in world and, I mean, not like, I mean, behind the scenes, but just like, I question the writing, Lita is treated horribly. Like, she never gets...
Oh,
dude,
absolutely.
pay for her quarters. You know? I mean, come on now.
Right. Lita always gets the shaft.
Yes.
I feel horribly for her. Norm, thank you so much for what you said, because that actually helps me put the telepath situation into perspective a little bit. That's what Byron is trying to get across, I think. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, it doesn't fully translate. And I think the reason why is because of him. And it's not necessarily
Byron
the actor.
or the actor?
The character.
Okay, the character. Okay.
The Byron.
Okay.
Not necessarily the actor. I think Robin Atkins Downs was okay. Mm-hmm. But just, the Byron character
was it the
rubs
long
me
hair?
the wrong way. No, it wasn't the long
was
hair.
Was it the 90s crystal jewel that everyone wore like Morton did? You know? It's like,
yes, it was exactly that. Because you know what? In the 90s, I had one too.
So did I.
It didn't mean anything.
I had the long hair, I had the jewel, everything.
Was it the sex scene, which as a young teenager, I'm like, am I...
Oh my gosh.
Do I need to close the door for this?
It was pretty... it was steamy.
It felt a little dirty, didn't it, back then?
It was. That was, I don't know, for TV at the time, it struck me as like...
For cable, I thought,
to be fair,
I don't want my mom
TV.
walking in when I'm 16 and watching this. But no, it's Byron that I have the problem with, because he wants to be the leader of these people. He wants to send a positive message. And he kind of gets forced into being almost like a Christ-like figure for these people. Mm-hmm. But really, he's got the capability of David Koresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can see the hippie trippiness, but I think there's a metaphor that could be used, which I think is used, but I think not well. For instance, and this is me, you could use the metaphor of the civil rights movement, of having Martin Luther King Jr. having a pacifist leader, and then people being dissatisfied or for whatever reason, and then you have more of a Malcolm X or other leaders who are advocating different solutions, not violent rhetoric. I mean, we can go into the history of it. But anyway, but seeing a sort of a split of ways. Now, they do that in the season where there's a break among the telepath community. But like the guy they have being the violent guy is sort of like, you know, side actor B who's doing, so I'm not really invested in that. It would have been cool if they'd sort of set up like this really strong second and then broken that up, and then you have these competing visions, which they do kind of, but then I don't know. I think it went on too long.
I think there's a story beat that was probably lost between 4 and 5, because if they showed a little bit of the disgruntled nature of the telepaths after the resolution in 4, where they were just like, it would have been interesting if someone brought up, it's like, we have all of these telepaths now. What do we do? You know, we have these weapons out there that are capable of, they're weapons of mass destruction in human form, because that's what Clark was really kind of like hinging on. It's like, we have all of these weapons at our disposal, and now they're just loose. They're loose. And what I liked about Byron is that I'm trying to get all of these weapons corralled and just give me like SETI Alpha 5. You're right. Just let me.
Well, 3 is occupied.
Exactly, and then the 6 was laid waste. So just let me go off. Just let me use your station for just a little bit as a hub, and let me take these people off of your hands. Just give me that. And I liked how he fought for that. And I think that because Lita was treated so poor, I mean, she was completely just crapped on the entire time. And I'm watching this season. I'm like, you realize what she did for you? She held off a shadow vessel by herself. Right? She did all of this line.
More than once.
Exactly. She did all of this line of sight stuff when she like coordinated all of the telepaths to do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, they're taxing you out of your room. They're completely like disregarding any of your requests, and then they throw you in jail. And then Sheridan has her at gunpoint at PPG point. I'm like, you realize what she did for you? What they all did for you?
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Lita just, oh my gosh. You know what? I totally feel awful for her through most of season 5, because at first I'm thinking, no, Lita, don't join the telepath cult. Don't join Byron. But then after that,
don't join Psy-Corps.
You know what I love, though, is that she finally has had enough, and she is so pissed, and she knows just how powerful she is, and she's no longer afraid to use it.
Mm-hmm. And she's showing up in people's bedrooms and making them forget it.
And I'm finally cheering her on, saying, yes, girl, do it. Get what is rightfully yours. And I love the idea, skipping ahead just a little bit, of her and Jakar just going off into the ether.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good idea for both of them. Get away from it all for a while.
Right. And I apologize to your listeners if I'm like kind of screamy, because I get so worked up about this stuff.
Oh, no, I think we're all preaching a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, because I think a unresolved... Well, I'm not saying it's unresolved in Season 5, but the larger unresolved plot of Babylon 5, or A1, is the Telepath War. We've never gotten to see it. It's sort of the Romulan War for Enterprise fans.
Right.
But they did try and tackle it in the books. There is the Telepath War Psi-Corps novel trilogy that they did in books.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Well,
cool,
something
good to know.
invest in. Yeah. So it would be interesting if they planted more I mean, and maybe they shouldn't have. Throwing things out of trying to help this telepath storyline. Throwing some seeds, which they did a little bit. Lita starting to sponsor, some... Well, I don't want to say terrorism, but one man's
remember
terrorism.
Byron, right? Remember Byron, like Wakanda, Wakanda forever. Remember Byron, right?
and you have the deal with Garibaldi that again 2 years from now. I'm like, the season's ending, by the way.
So she's working what she can at this point, and then whatever happens afterward, I hope for the best.
I do love the devil's bargain that she had with Garibaldi. Remove this telepathic block, and I will get you funding for the telepath war. That's what Garibaldi did. He used the funding from Edgar's Industries to help funnel money to the telepaths later on.
Garibaldi is the Tony Stark of the telepath war.
Well, I mean, I hope in some respects that I'm not trying to win over anybody, but I wanted to bring just a little different perspective on... I know that the telepath story wasn't the favorite part of season 5, but I do believe that they had to address it because of the fallout of the war. So,
and I think with Byron, because I can understand, his introduction, everything, and the talk with Garibaldi, and then using telepaths for the Alliance. I mean, that was all great. And then when Lita has her sex vision, shares it with Byron, if you will, and then he's like, "Oh wait, hold on. Vorlon's made this. Oh, this changes everything. I'm going to steal secrets, but it doesn't. It changes him, but it doesn't. And I think they were trying to do something, and it didn't quite work because it's like, oh, I'm gonna pretend to steal secrets from the ambassadors, but I'm really not because I'm a good guy. And I'm like, look, you're either going one way or the other.
But I think that's where the telepaths have always been abused in that way. I mean, let's go all the way back to say when Londo was trying to find where his dancer girlfriend was, and then in a negotiation, she's like, she abused her power because they know that they can do that. You can always skirt the line with telepaths. They're always being used in some way and never really being reciprocated for basically either skirting the law or completely breaking the law based on Psi-Corps rules. So I've always felt that the telepaths in the series were they're always treated like, forgive the term, tools, right? And they were never, ever, ever really given any proper reciprocity for being used so badly. And that's where I saw the value in this part of the story.
This is why we have you, Norm, because you're giving light to a very unpopular part of season 5, I think.
I hope so.
How hard was it to find a planet? Really? Because there were times, even when I agree with President Sheridan, excuse me, the proper title, that Byron and the telepaths were being really annoying even after he made the deal. But then he's like, no, I'm not going to find you a world. I'm like, okay, you're being a little petulant. I mean, I get it, but just kick him off to a planet. They'll be gone.
Exactly.
Get rid of them. I mean, win-win, Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're led to believe, maybe this is Star Trek bleeding in a little bit, but there's inhabitable worlds out there. Surely there had to have been something to where a small colony of telepaths could have settled. It would have been fine, and then, 15
if they all
later,
fit in like Brown 2, they really don't need that big of a planet.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, of course, the idea is in the future more telepaths go there to colonize, but even that, I mean, planets are big. So, I don't know. I feel like Sheridan he started to try with them because they saved his life during his inauguration. And then after that, he got so involved with other things, he just threw up his hands and said, I can't do anything for you. I'm real busy.
Right. They got, once again, they got cast aside. Right?
Yep. So in a way, is it any wonder that things went down the way they did? No, really not.
Well, as the deconstruction episode was, I think one of them said it was just inevitable, right? Which... we could talk more, and we can talk more, but I'm not saying we are. But moving on, the other one was sort of the Alliance attacks, which it confused me at the beginning of like the first half of the season, because I'm like, didn't we already do the Raiders storyline several seasons ago? So I was like, what? Because I'd actually kind of forgotten what was going on. So I'm like, really? Attacks? But anyway, so eventually we find out that it's, eventually, I guess, midway through the season, that it's Centauri. Though I think we probably suspected as the Drock at that point, or Shadow Allies at that point. And then, we learn all the stuff with Londo's storyline. And then we suddenly get the Centauri War. We get the attack, or the fall, I'll use the title episode, the fall of Centauri Prime. Basically the whole Drock Centauri War storyline with, I guess, sort of the second test of the Alliance, right? The first being the little smaller telepath one, the larger one being protecting its own, because it is, like, as we said before, Sheridan's first promise of, you join the Alliance, we'll protect you, and they're like, well, we're not being protected. So what y'all think of sort of the more action-packed, I guess, storyline of season 5?
What I really appreciate about this element of season 5 is the conflict it creates, because we do need conflict, right? And it's interpersonal conflict rather than big warlike conflict. Things like between Sheridan and Delenn, when Sheridan finds out that she sent Lanier on the mission to essentially spy and find out what's really going on, because she knows that he's up to the task, and things of that nature. And then from there on out, when they get the proof that they need, how painful that is.
Oh, for Londo.
When I'm particularly thinking of the scene when Delenn is laughing/crying after she gets the news, and then Londo is there and she hugs him, and he says, "What is that for?" And he has no idea what's coming, and my heart just breaks into little pieces over and over.
I think when we finally started seeing the shape of what was happening with the Centauri government and the fallout of the Shadows and the revenge of the Shadows with the Drock, because Morden said, there we have allies. Remember, he was pointing that finger at Londo. We have allies. You have no idea what you've done this day. And then Veer does the little wave and sees his head on a spike. But because of what happened at Zahadum, and then you saw the Drock kind of fleeing, you know that this wasn't over. And we always kind of saw hints of that, especially with War Without End 1 and 2, with Londo and Jakar at each other's throats. They never really kind of alluded to the Keeper, or the Drock for that matter. And now you're seeing all of that. Remember, this is like the beauty of Babylon 5 is that you're seeing 2 seasons ago
details
being now come to fruition in this series, in this season. So what I loved about this narrative, this part of the story, was that you're really seeing Londo fall. And the heartbreak of it is that you saw Londo completely shed all of what Londo was. When there was that scene when Londo and Jakar were on Centauri Prime, and he said, in the beginning, I had no power and all the choices in the world. And now I have all the power and no choice. And then
which echoes Emperor
Turhan.
First
Emperor Turhan. He said the exact same thing. Yeah, he said like,
I've never made one choice in my life.
Right, and he wasn't under the influence of the Drakh. He was just part. It was the Centaurum that was driving him that way.
It's just power.
Exactly.
Right.
And the nobility and the Centaurum, and they kind of like the Emperor is really more like a figurehead, but this time really he's truly a figurehead because the Drakh are in power. But the heartbreaking part of it is that, first of all, Peter Jurassic, this performance this season was probably one of his best, if not his best, because he's trying to hold it all together. He's trying to remember who he was and how he got there, especially with the help of G'Kar and how G'Kar changed him. Right? They both,
their relationship.
It's
oh my
it's
goodness.
It's one of the best
Season
in science
5.
fiction like ever, because a part of Londo was tempered by G'Kar and vice versa. They both saw the opposite sides of their plight, and they tried to be better about that. But then all of a sudden, the Drakh take over, and Londo has no choice, and is watching the dissolution, the dissolving relationships of this empire, of the Centauri Empire and the Interstellar Alliance fall, and he can't do anything. And he knows these people. He's fought side by side with them in both the Civil War and the Telepath War, and he can't do it. I mean, the Shadow War, and he can't do anything. Right? He's completely locked down.
Exactly. He's completely resigned to his fate, which is such a great contrast to the things that say, like the relationship he's had with G'Kar for most of season 5, with G'Kar being his bodyguard and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
How long have they been married?
Exactly.
Perfect line.
Yeah,
right?
The relationship makes this beautiful turn where I would dare say they like each other, but they really are, to some extent, friends. They've been through so much together, and they actually have that beautiful scene where G'Kar says, I can't forgive the Centauri for what they've done to my people, but I can forgive you. And then, right after that, Londo gets his keeper.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But even starting with, was it with episode 2 or 3, it was the Long Dark Night of Londo Mollari, where he actually asks for, or says he's sorry to G'Kar.
Oh, that's such a great episode. Maybe that is the turning point in and of itself, is when Londo has to let go of all of that weight. Side note, I want to tell you guys that was the episode where I officially fell in love with Babylon 5. Keep in mind, I was watching season 5 along with season 1 at the same time. The Very Long Night of Londo Mollari is where I said, yes, this is a show I can dig. This was the episode.
Was there a scene in particular, or was it the entire episode?
The entire episode was fantastic, but one thing I think did stick out, and that is all thanks to Veer. When Garibaldi comes to him in the Zocalo, tells him about Londo's heart attack, and he just rants to the people around, what is wrong with you people? Get a hobby, read a book or something. And that was it. That was it.
But there was also, for me, there was a specific scene there where earlier on when Cartagia was wanting his scream, and the pride, G'Kar's pride would prevent him from doing that, and Londo's just scream out, and we can save you, we can save your people. It was the same, they used the exact same scene, when he was, and then this is where Londo has to drop that, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to drop my pride and say, like, I'm sorry. I'm going to drop all this angst and guilt, which is basically destroying me from the inside. And this is where Londo starts to make his ascension from the darkness until he gets his keeper. And we're all watching it. You're like, no.
Right. He had to overcome this massive obstacle, which is a huge step for Londo Mollari, who is so prideful and such a good Centauri. And then he has to just drop it all. He has no choice.
Yep.
Because I think, with season 5, it's almost like season 4 all over again with Cartagia. Londo goes to, except you almost have G'Kar playing the Veer role. And you're like, oh, okay, Londo's he's defending his people, but he's also, and he's tied down a little bit by doctrine and tradition and dogma, but he does want to do the right thing, and he's going to find out what's going to happen, just like he did with Cartagia. But he finds out and he can't do anything. And I think the heartbreaking part for me was on the inauguration when they do, like, right before he goes out and they do the flashbacks of just all the Londo scenes, and you're like,
Right.
Yeah.
But even
you go from
but even more so,
Stab it a little further into the heart. Why don't you?
But going back to what you're really originally asking about, the second part of this season, it was interesting to see these dribs and drabs of like Raiders attacking Alliance and all that kind of stuff. But once the Alliance discovers that it's the Centauri, you're just like, oh my gosh, they completely go behind Sheridan's back and make this choice to bomb Centauri Prime. But I want to go into literally my favorite scene and favorite camera angle of this season is when
do tell.
It's when they're shooting Garibaldi through the glass of booze. And it's because, and this is where everything kind of comes into fruition, because Garibaldi's under all this pressure to be part of the Interstellar Alliance security, attaché, intel, this new thing.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure, and he's still fighting this whole psychological block by Bester, and he can't handle it. And all of a sudden, he's like, all we need you to do is let us know when the White Stars engage the next series of raids against the Interstellar Alliance on this border. That's all we need you to do. And they show that scene where he's completely passed out through the glass of booze. And I'm like, that's absolutely one of the most perfectly filmed and written scenes in this series, because they show exactly how Garibaldi falls, and in turn, how the Alliance falls because of a simple human weakness. And I want to say simple, disrespectfully for what he's going through with his alcoholism, but that is what is missing with a lot of science fiction, that human moment where that caused the catastrophe that happened to Centauri Prime. That moment caused the fall of Centauri Prime. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, it's so real too. It's a very, like you said, it's a very human failing. And Babylon 5, I really admire the way addiction is portrayed throughout the course of the series. We saw Franklin with the stims, and now Garibaldi with his alcoholism, even more so, because Garibaldi has dealt with the alcoholism before. He's had relapses, and now he's relapsing really hard, which just proves and shows that no matter how long you've gone, you're never fully out of danger. All it takes is that one thing, that one straw that breaks the camel's back, proverbially, to make it all happen again. And this is what happens with Garibaldi. So maybe we got to talk about Garibaldi's alcoholism right here.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the way that this is portrayed in
Drunk
the
again,
show.
Uncle Mike, yeah, exactly.
Right.
It goes all the way back
gosh.
to what's her name, Kemmer. When she
way back in season 1. Yeah. And I mean, as sad as certain scenes are where he's really just raving drunk, here, Linky. I laugh, and yet I'm crying a little bit at the same time, because it's just really sad to watch him fall like this. But he is an imperfect character, and Jerry Doyle just embraces that wholeheartly.
Right.
He commits, and I really appreciate that.
And that brings a certain line to bear. And I know I'm jumping forward a little bit, but that's when Ivanova looks at the mirror at the end of Sleeping in Light, and she goes, Babylon 5, there were second chances even for people like us. Every single one of the characters in Babylon 5 has a demon that they're fighting. Every single one.
Hey, and don't we all?
No, exactly. I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards this show, because these characters aren't, and I don't want to insult the Star Trek genre in any way, but these are flawed, super flawed characters that you can understand, because at one point in time, we're looking at that as a mirror to ourselves, and we're identifying with certain characters. Not a lot of characters in the Gene Roddenberry universe have that really serious character flaw. And again, let's go. I mean, I know people are like, how can Garibaldi's alcoholism cause the end of Centauri Prime? Well, look at that scene. All he had to do was one. You had one job.
That's all it did take. One misstep.
You had one mistake.
Right, and he still failed.
And it ended an empire.
But
and his relationship that he had with Londo. He lent him credits at the very beginning. He had that whole thing with Londo was like, it was a clerical error. I apologize. Cut my wrists. There's every one of these characters knows each other's business, and knowing that he failed the Alliance and he failed Londo at the same time.
And he failed himself.
You're
Let's
right.
not forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
then-
you're totally right, though, Norm. I mean, as much as I love Star Trek too, we all do on this panel, the very idea of overcoming addiction in Star Trek for humans is, oh, we've dealt with that. We're over it.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, Babylon 5 is a lot more realistic in that, no, we haven't.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up Stephen Franklin's STEM addiction, because that was also a big deal.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it was kind of a painful thing. It was one scene when you have these different confrontations with Garibaldi, and I want to say that one of the first is Zach.
Yeah.
Confronting Mike, and then when Garibaldi is kind of like, what about you, Zach? And when I knew you, and then I was kind of like, oh man, that's kind of because how that actor died,
right?
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but you know what? I think behind the scenes, JMS has a great way of writing in the actor's past into their character. I mean, we know Jeff Conaway had drug addiction issues. Jerry Doyle had alcohol issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
let's use it.
Here we are.
The director's yelling it from the use it.
And he did this with Delenn, with Mira Furlan, and all that she went through in the former Yugoslavia and having to come to the United States. I mean, it's great fodder, just written into an alien universe.
With the Garibaldi, I liked the ending, but the middle part with Lise, I almost forgot about her. And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's right, they did meet at the end of season 4, and I'd completely forgotten about her." And then it doesn't go well, and I'm almost like, why is she still with him? Because then she comes back the second time, and things are fine, which is good. I'm glad they ended up together. I'm glad about that part, but it's they have a unique relationship, I'm sure.
I think it's hard.
Well, they've been so. Sorry, Norm, go ahead.
I mean, it's. I think it's harder for kind of the secondary characters to get to wedge themselves back into the story, because the core characters are so strong. You're really
right.
looking at their relationships, and all of a sudden, Lise Hampton comes in and she tries to clean up Michael, but her storyline was really not in season 5; it was in season 4. So.
Because I hated a little bit of her, I'm running a big company, but I need a man to come and help me do it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well.
No, hold on a second. I'm going to take exception to that. It's not that she needs a man to do it. She needs his skill set, because she knows he trusts nobody.
He has a particular set of skills.
Yes.
Well, it's true. And if you consider, later on when we find out, what Garibaldi is doing when he does clean himself up, he takes all those disgruntled middle management people and puts them in charge. Lisa's absolutely right. He's doing the right thing. She does need him to set things straight and fire all these other a-holes who are out to get her.
And bring in number 1, right?
I don't know if it's a little esoteric reference, but that board scene reminded me a little more of Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie, when it's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon coming in.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
And then I like when Garibaldi says, Mr. So-and-so, leave the cigars. Because he was smoking cigars at the end, and it's like, that's kind of
right. He traded alcohol for cigars, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what happens sometimes is you just trade addictions.
Right, one for the other.
Exactly.
Some people, you go from one bad one to a maybe slightly healthier one. I wouldn't say cigars are healthier, but
slightly.
Usually you go from something like drug addiction to exercise. Just saying, Michael.
Pilates,
Yeah.
Okay, so, and basically, eventually, what we're going to go talking about is the saying goodbyes part.
Oh, don't.
And then we're going to talk about sleeping in light. But before we get there, let's talk some subplots before we get to saying goodbye and transitioning out. So what are some from episode 1 to episode 18, some good subplot, or even maybe some not good subplots of season 5 for your characters?
Well, I think we have to bring up the fact that standalone episodes make a triumphant return in season 5.
Well, and I think season 5, and what would you call this? Day in the life? Because we get was it the Bone Mac? I'm saying that right? Episode.
Mac and
you get
you're
Mac,
relationshipping them?
Bo.
I am.
Okay.
You get
Bomac.
You get the Core's father, the Core's mother, Psy-Core episode.
Yeah.
You get these sort of day in the life episodes from these point of views.
A view from the gallery.
Yes.
There you go, view from the gallery.
And
right.
Day of the Dead.
Right.
We get the Rangers as well. Ranger training.
Exactly. Yeah. So
yeah.
So there's all these sort of the universe. You've been here for 4.5 years. We're just going to pick this little pocket and just be there for an episode.
Yeah. Personally, I love this part of season 5 where we get these perspectives that we couldn't have when everything else was just so plot heavy on the war and having to advance what happens with that. This gives us a lot of perspective. One of my absolute favorites is A View from the Gallery, in part because Mac and Bo are such lovable characters, but it's kind of like that Lower Decks feel where you know that there's these people who are behind the scenes making everything run besides our main characters. We finally get to see what life is like on the station for them.
I totally agree. I love that episode because this is from a civilian's perspective.
Right.
Right. And I love that there's one scene where they're talking about, who are the bad guys or who are the good guys. And then I believe it was Mac that said, well, if it's green, then it's an enemy because their atmosphere is different when their ship explodes. If it's red, it's one of ours because that's how oxygen burns in space.
Is this like a reverse lightsaber thing?
Maybe. But it was just neat that they had this perspective because you don't really get a lot of the kind of like the ground level perspective of the characters. And I like the two actors. They had a really good relationship.
Totally.
And what did they say? It's like 50 credits an ounce, if you can believe that. Talking about the spoo. But it's neat. They get a lunch break. They're trying to clean up stuff. Sheridan asks them to escort Delenn out of danger. And then she remembers them at the end.
Yeah.
You just get to see it from a non-combatant's or a non-central character's point of view. And I think that was really, it was a brilliant move.
Yeah.
Narratively.
Oh, I think so too. It's these people don't necessarily have a big stake in the war, but they're there.
And they're wondering what the thing on the floor does. Like,
what does this do?
You just move it back and forth.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good rapport. They cast those two guys very well. Another favorite of mine, and I want to know if you guys like this one, is Day of the Dead.
I like that they brought Neil Gaiman in to write this because he is obviously a writer we all know, and he has certain clout in the fandom industry. But what I liked about this episode was there was a lot of past storytelling for certain characters and some future storytelling for other characters, and I liked seeing more of, we mentioned this earlier on, where you had Lockley's and Zoe's relationship. So you got a little bit more world building and character building for Lockley, but you also got a little bit of, like a happier moment for Garibaldi because you never really got to see where he and Dodger they could have gone from Gropos, all the way back. What was that, season 2?
Yeah.
To groping, yeah.
So, back to Groping. So it was interesting to bring her back as a character, as a choice character for that. But then you also saw...
Rolando gets his lady as well.
Yeah, Adira.
That's right. She has Lady Adira, which was nice because of what happened at the hands of Lord Rifa's machinations. But then I think the most interesting kind of like foreshadowing that you got was, exactly, Lennier and Morden.
Yes.
And also...
I felt like that was a bit of a... all right, who do we got available? Like, I feel like, in the dream world, like, can we get Marcus? We can't, like, not at all. He's not at all. Okay, well, that's
so
who
glad
I really
you
wrote
brought
this
that up.
for.
He's a logical choice, right? But
yeah.
For a guy to deliver bad news, it's got to be Morden.
Yeah.
And Ed Wasser's hair was, like, on point in his return to Morden. It wasn't just slicked back. It was, like, super mushroom poofy slicked back. I mean, it was, like... so it was neat to see Morden back, but also it was neat to see what he had to say.
Right?
And you were waiting for that moment.
Yeah, because
right? Ever since that.
Yeah, like, I don't know. How did you guys feel about when Lanier joined the Rangers? Because I felt like that was the first misstep in many missteps for him. He's feeling like the third wheel after Sheridan and Delenn get married. He doesn't really know what to do with himself. And so, I'll just go off and join the Rangers. That did not seem like a good choice for him whatsoever. If I were him, maybe I would just fade off. But this, of course, creates more dramatic storytelling. So we're going to do this instead.
You see, I actually thought that was the right choice for Lanier.
Really?
Because he needed to belong, in my opinion. He also, remember, he was religious caste. The third Fane of Chidomo. He always wanted to serve.
True.
And he couldn't find anywhere on the station or with the people that he belonged with to serve anymore. He felt like, this is my capacity. I fulfilled my capacity. Delenn taught me how to look up. I can't go any further in our relationship. Yeah, and I can't take my relationships on this station any further. So where do I take my capacity to serve? I have to take it to somewhere else where I can serve and sort of be with my own people, because now you had this whole mix between human rangers and in the Anlashak and Minbari in the Anlashak. And it served his purpose in some episodes. So I thought it was neat that he went there, not because he wanted to, because it was the best of any other choice for him, but because he wasn't serving with a pure intent. That's what happened when he had to make that choice.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that, because it's still a misstep on his part. He's joining the Rangers because he thinks somehow by doing so he's going to maybe change Delenn's mind and become more desirable to her. No. No.
Next thing you
he
know,
knows
he's going to be
this, but he
talking
doesn't
about
know it.
how he can impress Jodie Foster. I mean, this is basically the route he's going.
But also what I liked about him being in the Rangers, it sets up the huge kind of confrontation where he presents the information to the Alliance. And even Londo said Lanier's reputation is beyond reproach.
True.
So if Lanier says it, it has to be true,
Lanier lied
whether
for
I
Londo,
like it or not.
So, yes.
Wow,
yeah,
that was
there's
young.
that.
That was young, impressionable.
Yeah,
right?
never mind the car thing.
If there is any
that,
alcohol
that
in here,
weird
I will,
thing, yeah. I'll go into a psychotic rage and murder people. All right, give me that. Yeah.
So sad, right? And I mean, I'm not going into endings, but I'm saying, not great for Lanier.
But I also want to kind of circle back to the point where every single character in this series is flawed, including Lanier.
Yep. Oh yeah, very much so.
Right. His choice, it wasn't a pure choice. It was a choice that he made because of, I hope if I do this, then this will happen. It's not like I want to serve the Anlashak unabashedly without any other influence. I want to do it. He's doing it because if I do this, then maybe Delenn will see me for who I am.
Well, I like,
and that's the wrong reason.
When Emperor Turan, the Ranger Master, JMS only knows 10 people, and when it was talking about to him about that Marcus, had the same flawed path. He said, "Oh, very sad, of course, but he also had a impure, service or purpose to joining the Rangers because it was for his family." They did sort of bring that up again. What about any other characters past Jakar? I do like the adventures of Jakar and Londo, but then the Book of Jakar gets published complete with coffee stains.
I do love that they brought in Talon.
Yes,
because I'm a big fan of Marshall Teague.
Yeah.
And I love the whole that line, and only JMS writes this stuff, right? So it's like, he goes, "I hold my sword in my hand. You hold it in your heart and in your mind. That gives you a 3-to-1 odds against me." I'm like, how do you write stuff like this?
That's when you know somebody is just really in the zone. They're not really in reality at that point. Yeah. That is the kind of writing I aspire to.
Yeah. But I like that in some, I guess, kind of like in the subtext or subplots of some of these characters, you're seeing a lot of the passing of the torch with certain characters. Like, that Jakar says, eventually I can't stay on the station because this religious whatever I am now is becoming a problem. All of these Narn are starting to flock to the station, much like the telepaths did, and they're starting to disrupt things violently in some cases. So I have to remove myself. You're starting, with some of the subplots, you're starting to see how they're going to remove certain characters from the station into their next phase of character development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did like that Lanier and Veer had a goodbye early on, before he left for Ranger training. So
yes, that was a must. I love those scenes where they're just mutually kind of ranting about their jobs to each other. And they're just, I don't know, they last maybe a minute, but they mean so much.
But these are those lower decks moments for us, right?
Right.
Because that's why we love lower decks so much, is because you actually see characters disgruntled and talking about their bosses or their managers and what they have to do on a daily basis. And like, next week, same time?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, I think we can all relate to that too. When you don't work as the manager, you're just like, I don't make the rules. I just work here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's a character you love to hate, or you hate to love, I don't know. And I don't know if he was a bit overused this season or not. I'll leave it open. But Bester, we get a pretty decent size of dose of Bester in season 5.
Yeah, I think one of the more underrated episodes is the Korra's mother, the Korra's father, where we get to see the day in the life of Alfred Bester, someone we don't really like. and yet he's completely revered by the people he works with and for. And I don't want to say he comes off as a good guy, but we certainly understand him more.
That's actually a really good point, Char, because a lot of these episodes, kind of like going all the way back to A View from the Gallery, is that you're seeing characters from different perspectives and not through their interaction with characters that we like. And I think that's a huge distinction that you need to make. When you see Bester and Garibaldi together, you're taking Garibaldi's side because we're invested and we love Garibaldi, and he can't be wrong, but Bester obviously has to be wrong.
Right.
So when you see them, and also what I love about the Korra's mother is Korra's father, I think it's the only time in Babylon 5 where they actually change the title card.
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Right? So you saw that and you're like, okay, this is from a kind of like a propagandist's point of view for the Psi Corps. And then you see these two other young Psi Corps officers kind of like up and coming, and you're like, interns, right? And you're like, huh. That's how they would see Alfred Bester, the legend of Psi Corps, you know?
Right. Yeah, he's revered. He's highly regarded
right. So
in
now,
that world.
Everything comes, I guess, to a matter of perspective on the character. And he's not turning them into bloodhounds. I mean, he's not turning them into, you must do this against. No, he's not. How is he?
Well, I don't think he's turning them, but like, hey, can I dump the human into space? Sure.
I don't think.
Well,
but
here's what he's doing.
I don't. That's him against the mundanes. That's not necessarily him like turning Byron. It's like, hey, Byron, fire on this. You know, this all of these mundanes because that I'm ordering you to do that. You know, it's just, and it's only that one character.
Bester is so invested in the Psi Corps and what it stands for and what it means to be a part of this organization. He is Psi Corps. He's doing whatever is best in the vested interest of this organization.
Because I think there's interesting things they do in that episode to, I don't know if soften is the right word, but for instance, one, they have him refuse the young intern seduction. So,
yeah, that was kind of creepy and awful, and I'm glad that he was a gentleman about it.
Yeah, but so he looks good by that. Two,
Yeah.
he has a boss, right? Because we don't ever see
Right.
anyone telling, you know, and they seem very collegial, but still, that reduces Bester. And so he seems more, you know, palatable than just the bad guy coming from random. So
he actually has to answer to somebody who doesn't necessarily have to either agree with or gave him orders to do what Bester did. Sometimes Bester, in some cases, he seems like a rogue element because he knows who's out there, especially when he found his lover. I can't remember her name, but, you know, when she was caught, Carolyn, when she was caught in the machine. Thank you. And he's like, now I'm off Psi Corps' rules. I'm doing what's best for me and for her and for our unborn child.
Yes.
So I'm reacting to this as a person, not necessarily as an officer of this agency.
I was, again, because I don't remember everything perfectly, watching that episode when, you know, he's like, unlike what they would like to believe, Babylon 5 is not the most important place in the universe. I'm like, oh, okay, so this episode is like, oh, no, we're going to Babylon 5. Okay, well, okay.
Yeah. And he rolls his eyes. He's like, really? like, again. But all things considered, and as much as I love him as Chekhov, I think that this was Walter Koenig's signature role.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Oh,
He owned this role. He didn't. I'm not going to say he doesn't own Chekhov, but I think Legend owns Chekhov and him as Chekhov, right? Because that's who he was, and that's how Legend kind of shaped him. But as an actor, embracing a character and owning the nuances of a character, Bester will always be his character.
Oh, totally. It's a much meatier role. It's much better in terms of showing off his range as an actor, the dynamic character that he gets to portray. I'm sorry, Chekhov has nothing on that. He's got nothing on Bester.
So we got catching up with a few things. Natoth shows up on Centauri I know that probably a larger point JMS was trying to make with the bureaucracy, but very interesting of like how she just got forgotten.
She did get lost in the chaos of everything else that was going on. And so actually when this whole thing got brought up again, when she showed up, I thought, wow, hello, afterthought.
Yeah.
Sorry, Natoth.
But I guess in the grand scheme of things, with all of these different, you know, agendas that are going on, these bigger picture agendas, a smaller character like Natoth would have been forgotten. To Centauri, she's just another Narn.
Right. She has
Right?
meaning to Jakar.
She's just another number. Right. Now, I know that Londo knows her from certain episodes and negotiations, but for the government, when Cartagia was in power, she's just another whatever. You know, she means nothing. And I like that because Londo knows how important that is to Jakar.
Right.
And he's using that, or Joe Muskell, JMS is using that to say, okay, I, as Londo, know how much that means. I'm trying to reconcile part of my character by giving you this opportunity for myself and for Jakar. But overall, though, like in war, she's just another casualty, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a certain realism to that because she's, again, to the Centauri, she's just an animal.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. She got lost in the shuffle. I don't know if it was on purpose, but it certainly makes sense.
There was a throwaway line, and I can't remember what episode it was. It was when, I think it was the first time Lise came, I think, when they were at the restaurant with Garibaldi. He's like, oh, the last time I was here was with Jeff and Catherine when they got engaged.
They were in fresh air.
Yeah. But there's a throwaway line he says, Jeff, disappeared, and then Catherine disappeared a year later. I'm like, what happened to her? Like, what do you mean she disappeared? Like, now I'm invested in that. Or whatever did happen to Catherine Sakai. Oh, well.
We'll never know.
I know. Maybe this.
Do you think
comics are?
I mean, do you think sometimes because this show is so well written and makes us invest in almost every single character that we see, do you think sometimes we're doing some of these secondary characters a little bit of a disservice, wondering what happened to them, and not just taking them at face value from characters that go in and out of the story? Because that happens sometimes, especially like we're coming in from a certain 5-year point, and in that 5-year point, there are characters that are coming. There before before Sinclair took over, and then after all of the station was destroyed. So that's 20 years, I guess, when Sheridan leaves. But life goes on around the station, right?
Yeah.
There aren't really any kind of like, this is the beginning and this is the end. I never really felt that about Babylon 5. This is just kind of like a snapshot of a 5-year history of when this ship or the station was operational. And characters will just come and go. The Zocalo was full of characters. It's just, we just kind of focused on these ones.
It's true. You make a very good point, Norm. I mean, there's like, 500,000 people living, or no, 250,000.
250,000 people living.
A
quarter million.
They're living
all
on
alone
this
in the
station,
night.
and
5 miles.
Of course, naturally, people are coming and going on this station. And yeah, I think we do get so invested in every little person that we see that we read into it too much. You're right.
Well, it's kind of what we do in fandom. We want to know everything there is to know about everybody. But in the grand scheme of a narrative, it's kind of like taking a book and just grabbing like a center of it and like, okay, I'm going to read these 5 chapters. And all of a sudden there's a reference to a character that just kind of fizzles. But 10 chapters later, all of a sudden that character is really important.
Yeah.
Right. Or the opposite.
It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Or the opposite, right? It's like that character goes nowhere. But for this 5 chapters, that character was doing something, and then all of a sudden.
Well, and I also think it depends, though, because, like, say, take a Catherine Sakai, right? So they got engaged. Jeff gets reassigned to Mimbar, and he's like breaks up with her. What's the?
Well, he's going
why didn't
back
she go to
to
Mimbar with him?
Because she's an explorer. That's her job. She likes doing that and she could have been like shanghaied by IPX. You never know. Or she could have gotten like a big contract. So it's a great point that you want to care about Catherine Sakai because she was invested.
Or are they
with
just
Sinclair.
using her for the purpose of like, we just want to make it, they're engaged, and then it breaks apart. And I mean, in other words, is this character have any meaning? Is this just an ephemeral thing? Or, because it's a character, let's invest. Oh, she doesn't mean anything. Oh, sorry, I thought.
Yeah, remember, they get together, they break up, they get together.
But this time was different.
Anyway. Did you break up, or was it me? No, it was you. No, it's definitely you.
I asked about your aunt.
Yeah. I asked about your uncle or something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's time to get into the long goodbyes.
I can't.
Oh,
well,
boy.
We're not talking about the final one. We're just talking about the comings and goings. Because I think there's this very interesting weaving. We have these people that'll come in, like a Tessa or a Talon. And we're like, what? Oh, I see. And then we have the other people leaving. And so I just wanted to seek out, who do we think of sort of the replacements? And what do we think of where people were going in the last 5 episodes? So
So this will be objects in motion and objects in rest.
Pretty much.
I don't know. It's probably like the last 5 episodes too, because I mean Tessa showed up in like the one, about like 3 or 4 episodes before that. But yeah, and so I guess just go down the list here. So President Sheridan's going to Minbar with Delenn. I mean that's the last episode or the penultimate episode. So I don't know why I picked that one too. But that's pretty basic. Of course, they're the last ones I guess who were going to leave. So, and it was set up since the beginning that this was just this was the New York and Philadelphia before going to Washington, D.C. of the Alliance capital. I expected sad that they're leaving Babylon 5, but not a big thing. We know where they're going. But Garibaldi, how'd you like him going to Mars and being Cohener or whatever his role is?
Well, I think he summed it up pretty nicely. President got outbid by Lise, and he's going to take that. There's a lot of opportunity there for him, and seeing as how when he quit security of Babylon 5 in Season 4, Psychor block or not, he enjoyed running his own business and working for himself, and so I think that translated nicely to taking over Edgar's Industries, one of the most powerful companies in the known universe, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then he's got the love of his life right there. Things are pretty good for Garibaldi. It seemed like a nice
always going to be
step.
Mars for him.
Yeah, he's tied to that place. He can't ever completely leave.
From a behind the scenes perspective and reading a lot about that particular scene when Garibaldi is leaving, when Jerry Doyle had to do that scene with Bruce Boxleitner, there's that moment where he's like, I didn't think that any of us would get out of here alive. And that for me, like there were other goodbyes that happened before that. I believe that Jakar and Lita actually left before.
They did.
Before
yes.
this. And so did Stephen, and then Franklin did too. This was the hardest goodbye for me to see because I loved reflecting all the way back when Garibaldi didn't trust Sheridan. And they used the healing mechanism, the healing machine, and when Sheridan basically gave his life force to save Garibaldi to create that trust. And then they broke that trust when Garibaldi Judased him, to Earth Alliance. And now they've gone through all of this and they had that hug. And I read about that, and I've heard this in interviews where Jerry Doyle and Bruce Boxleitner, they knew that this was their last scene filmed together, or one of their last scenes filmed together, and they used that moment, and you can feel that moment. And when you watch him act, and he says, I didn't think I was going to get out of here alive, and you think all the way back to The Gathering back in 1992, when it was him and Michael O'Hare, you're like, wow, you as a character, as an actor, have taken us on such a journey. I'm not ready to say goodbye to you yet, but this is how it's being kind of set up, and I don't want you to go. I think that's one of the things where I'm going to get kind of real mushy, all this, for your listeners.
Please get mushy.
I will, and it's hard for me to say this because I don't think I've said this out loud to an audience, but someone asked me why I do a Highlander podcast and not a Babylon 5 podcast. And I said, well, Babylon 5 is my favorite show. And they said, why? And they said, because I never had a harder time saying goodbye to characters in my entire life, ever. I love these characters to the very depths of my bones. And when they say goodbye to each other, it's not saying goodbye from the series. It's an emotional goodbye. One of the hardest emotional goodbyes I've ever seen in my entire life, if not the. So especially him. Mm-hmm. And I go all the way back to that scene where they shoot him through the glass of booze and where he started from, where he got to, and where he's going to, especially in Sleeping in Light. And that for me is that's why this show is amazing, because the arc of his character is phenomenal. And when you can tell he's holding everything back because he doesn't want to fall apart. And I know Jerry said he was going to.
Yeah, but he was causing everybody else in the scene to fall apart with him, and they couldn't use those takes.
I was a wreck when I watched that. When I watched that for the first time, I was a wreck. I was like, just the pizza, I'll order 5 boxes of Domino's. I'm going to get this giant bottle of scotch, and I'm just going to deal with it. I can't.
As Garibaldi would, right?
That's right.
Exactly. I can't handle what's going on right
pizza.
now. So
I want
exactly.
pepperoni.
A real pizza. Yeah. Only, yeah. I should have ordered some bunyacana. So that's that's how I felt about these things. I'll say this for probably every character that says goodbye.
Now, Franklin, and I always feel like Franklin never got enough, like all 5 years. But anyway.
Totally underused. He just gets to go quietly, do his thing.
And like okay, well, first, I mean, so, he got the gig, which I guess was predictable. Though I did like the continuity. Dr. Kyle is retiring.
Right?
Yeah.
Apparently, there's the only people allowed are people who have been the CMOs of B5. But anyway, that's cool. I do like the continuity, though. And so he's going to go work on Earth, or Earth Dome, I suppose. But, like, it's kind of sad because, like, he goes all by himself. And, like, I was waiting for him, like, to look back and, like, I guess no one gives a but anyway, okay, and just leaves,
Well, hey, let's be honest. He had one last good hurrah with number 1, Tessa.
Mm-hmm.
Check, please.
That is unfortunately
a good
as
hour,
fulfilling as Franklin gets.
A good hour.
So, I mean, he had a good solid hour, and I mean that's just kind of his life. That's what he does. He's got some bed buddies and his job, and that is Franklin and his life.
You know what I loved about this scene in particular, when he kind of looks around and there's no fanfare, there's no one. It's like, that's just a day in the life.
Yeah.
Right? He's just going off to his next assignment. You want to see these big goodbyes. And some characters did. I'm not going to say that they didn't.
Right.
But Franklin's like, you know what? I'm going off to Earth Dome and I'm going to be chief of, the xenobiology. But that's just 24 hours from now. I'm going to be there and I'm just going to start something new.
But even his goodbye scene with Sheridan is off sound. Like, oh yeah, there he is.
Right.
I'm like, man.
You know what? I mean, that's a great contrast that you bring that up, because we do get the big goodbye where Sheridan and Delenn, their travel plans get leaked, and suddenly everybody is zoomed in on the Zocalo wanting somebody to say something, some profound words, which, of course, Delenn comes through because when Sheridan can't do it, the woman has to step up and do it. Yeah. But Franklin is pretty much the rest of us. Going from job to job. We might be doing extraordinary things in our day-to-day life, but you know what? Nobody's really paying attention. We just have to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's really all a matter of perspective when it comes to these characters. I mean, some, again, like with Sheridan and Delenn, that's a bigger thing. But even when Jakar says goodbye, he's not really saying goodbye to the station.
So he gets the party.
He and Lita go off together. Yeah, but I love kind of like the video that leaves behind for Talon. It's like, the part of me that is going is very much going to miss the part of you that is staying. I think is that the one? And I'm like, yeah, think about all he has gone through and all what he has. And he's literally forced off the station because his presence there is causing so much chaos. He has nothing to do but leave. And then Lita, no one's going to say goodbye to her from the Earth Alliance, especially not for the Interstellar Alliance, because she is a threat as well. So Jakar's like, yeah, let's test those pleasure thresholds and see where it takes us.
Right,
I think you
win-win for
fanfics.
both of them, honestly.
Going all the way back to, I like how we were saying this, Phil. It's like they're circling all the way back to the gathering, where a lot of these nuggets, these emotional nuggets, were planted, and now they're really paying off. The crop of those emotions are really paying off at the very end, where I guess the stalwart, tried and true, people that watched it at that time were like, wow, how do you remember that all the way back 5 years later? And that's how just amazing the series is.
It's one of those things, like, we have to tell people, like, you have to watch season 1. Like, you may not think you have to. Sit through the whole bleeding thing. You will see why.
It's true. This is why, because it all does come full circle. And when you get as invested as we have, and many other fans have, I feel like Babylon 5, certainly for me, has been one of those shows that transcends just being a TV show. Shout out to the B5, that little band that, survived for a few months. I don't know if guys know about that. But anyway, I get so connected to this story, to these characters, that yes, it really does make me cry. And TV does not make me cry. There is the disconnect where it's on the screen. Yes, emotional things are happening and I might feel it, but I'm not really quite getting there myself, With Babylon 5, that breaks down. It's one of the few shows that actually manages to just break that barrier and just kill me from the inside out, and while I'm loving it and hating it all at the same time.
And the use of characters in memory, and I apologize, I don't know her name, but when Steven hands off his duties to the doctor that we've seen like 3 times, before, but like we know who she is. We probably haven't seen her for like a season, but like.
But she's been there. Yeah, she's argued with him. I mean, she was there with the stim addiction. Yeah.
And so, she gets the head off to chief of Med Lab. And then with, like you said, with Talon, Norm, I think my favorite line with that message is, I forget the exact, you probably know the exact quoting, but like, you are as I was when I first arrived. That whole like you were saying, Norm, this is just the snapshot. So now this is just like the new guy who is just like Jakar when he first got there, though probably a little less angry, hopefully. But anyway.
Yeah, check the logs. You might be quite amused. That's my favorite line from the speech. But
even going all the way back to this character with Talon's character, even though he wasn't named in particular, when Sheridan was abducted by the Streeb, and he was there, and they were supposed to like martially, they were supposed to martially kill each other. All of a sudden he comes back. You're like, wow, he was a throwaway character in that episode, but now he comes back, and now he is the ambassador to Babylon 5. But I think, and you guys might agree with me with this, the scene that really broke my heart first at the end of this season was when Sheridan left. They're on the White Star, and he goes match rotation.
Oh,
and then you see the panning shot, right?
Right. The new
of all of the
next generation.
It was Babylon 5, the next generation, but you're seeing the counterparts. And these aren't, maybe with the exception of the new Doctor, all of these characters in some way you've become invested in. You had Veer taking over for Londo. You had the new Doctor. You had Talon taking over from Jakar.
Tessa.
You had Tessa taking over as Chatted Security for Garibaldi, and we saw what she was all about as number one. In the whole the Mars War. But then you had Lockley taking over for Sheridan's Earth Alliance. And when they salute each other and they whip pan over back to Sheridan, you're like, there's something changing.
Right? It's that passing of the torch,
and
man.
I'm not ready for this. Yeah. Right. But then when Sheridan leaves, they're still there.
The story continues.
And doing the Babylon 5 thing, right? Well, you're off over here, kind of like, what's going on over here? But I want to see these characters more, but I'm over here seeing, like, where's Sheridan going off to Tuzanor and Minbar? I'm like, there's too much. I can't emotionally take
just like
what's
life,
going on,
man.
Right? Exactly. It's like there's just so much, but you have to see it from a matter of perspective. I think is what I'm saying. It's like, where's the compass being drawn, and where are you throwing out that plumb line? Who are you paying attention to?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have to keep following our heroes just to finish it off, the story. But it's showing just, hey, life does go on. These are new, fresh faces. They're going to have their own adventures, and unfortunately, we don't get their stories, but you never know. Maybe someday.
I did want to mention, because we also get Zach, of course. I think
Zach.
Well.
I mean, he's there. Yeah.
But like he has really gotten good in his job. Like season 5, like he's at Garibaldi level in season 5. Not that we didn't think he would be, but he was sort of kind of like, your blue collar assistant chief, security chief, or as much as we. But like he's pretty badass by season 5. Like he knows what's going on. He knows what he needs to do to run security. He's getting up to things in Brown Sector.
And he's the only one who gave Lita the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Oh, the sad goodbye.
Always has.
The silent, sad goodbye with Lita, where you're like, I remember watching going, oh man, Zach should really, he's not going to, no, Zach, you should.
I know, Zach always just kind of had a little bit of a misstep with Lita. All that could have been, right?
Well, no, the rule, of course, on Babylon 5 is that the chief of security always has to have a crush on the resident telepath. That is,
of course, right.
It's in the. Have you not read the regulations? It's.
It's too bad that he didn't get a chance to show Lita his second favorite.
right. Yeah, no, that's true. Zach does come a long way. He goes from being just being very good at doing what he's told by somebody who knows more than what he does, to being that guy who knows exactly what to do. He knows the place inside and out. And by the time they get to Sheridan's inauguration, he's like, yeah, Michael, I got this. Lay off.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't go to that next point, please.
Right? Seriously.
Now we're here for another 2 hours.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, and there's more we could cover, I'm sure, but...
Should we get to the really, really hard part? Sleeping in Light.
So, Sleeping in Light, for those who may not remember, of course, this was filmed at the end of season 4. When I'm watching it this time, I was like, well, I guess it's not really the last episode, but anyway, it is the last episode. But anyway, Sleeping in Light, again, we could do a whole hour just in this episode, so I'm just going to leave it open for them. Sleeping in Light, I guess, what are the moments you all takeaway after repeated viewings that stick with you the most? Or really from the ending montage, or or 3 ending montages. What are
the
you?
last 5 minutes? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's the Ivanova montage. There's the blowing up the station montage. There is the pause for playback montage. There is the first and last appearances of every character montage. So. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So I just want to preface this by saying I watch Sleeping in Light very sparingly. I've maybe watched it 10 times in the last, however 20-something years it's been out there.
25 happy anniversary Babylon 5.
It is for the gathering.
Years, yeah.
The thing is it hits me so hard, and I don't want to desensitize to it. And I want it to keep its power. So back in the day when I watched it on VHS, I maybe watched it a handful of times. I would always honestly skip it, because every time I watch this episode, I am in a pool of tears. This is one of the best and most powerful goodbyes to one of the shows I love the absolute most. I know I'm tearing up right now. I really am.
No, I mean, I know that's how powerful. I mean, that's how powerful this last episode is. I've watched this episode, like you said, sparingly, because it's hard to watch. It's when you watch Sleeping in Light, you're watching this culmination in this finale that ends this story, and you don't want it to end because you care about these characters so much. And even though you know what's going to happen, it's still hard to watch emotionally because of what it represents. I've seen it, and I watch it 2 different ways. I watch it actually at the end of season 4, after the deconstruction of Falling Stars, to see it in its context with Ivanova's really character being completed. But I think it is really good in that context, but it's also, I think it's more powerful at the end of season 5 because of 2 things. One, going all the way back to when Sheridan dies at Zahadum, and then you have the prophecy of 20 years, right? You get to see that this is now happening. 20 years later, 20 years of history. You're and all the stuff that happened with the Interstellar Alliance, and he will simply stop. Lorien says in 20 years he will simply stop. But also some of the resolutions of characters that you didn't think they weren't going to go so well, especially Garibaldi and being at the head of Edgar's Industries, and he's so powerful. He's the big boss man now. And I loved when the Rangers all made their appearances.
Right, especially like bolting into Ivanova's office. That one in particular really strikes me, just because Ivanova takes a look at him and knows.
Ivanova, I always give it extra special meaning because every time she sees a Ranger, I assume she sees someone else. And so...
I'm sure she does emotionally in her heart.
Like her remark, I've told you, anytime a Ranger shows up, you bring them here. And so.
Exactly, for whatever reason. But she knows, everyone knows that day is marked in time when Sheridan is going to die. And, God, should I spoiler alert this? Because I know people probably know what's going on. But I think in this episode in particular, it's not so much that you know what's going to happen. It's how the actors portray what's going to happen. And... You know that Boxleitner is like, I just want one last hurrah with my friends. And it feels like not only in the character of Sheridan he's doing that, but the actor as well, surrounded by his friends. They're all going through this. But they did that a year earlier, I should say. But I think the most powerful scene for me in Sleeping in Light was the toasts around the table. Yeah, because...
Well, I mean,
it almost got me for a second.
With filling in the gaps. So Lanier,
he's not there.
Well, I mean, I guess she's saying he's dead, right?
Well, no, he maybe he never came back because he was still.
It's been 20 years.
His worth to her. Remember? But I mean, but he could have just said, you know what? Maybe proving my worth to her is not being in her life anymore. Because he did that. There was that hologram at the end where he's like, someday I hope I'll be able to prove myself to you for what I've done and betrayed the Alliance. Not only did I betray the Alliance, I betrayed you. And that was more powerful to him than just selling out Sheridan. He could care less about Sheridan.
It's true. He's not a big fan.
Even though he was on...
But it's true. Yeah. He's not going to be able to come back from that. He knows he screwed up. He screwed up royally.
Right.
He screwed up presidentially.
But it's when you know the choices of the characters who toasted fallen characters was perfect. Garibaldi toasted Jakar, and I was like, But it's when Franklin and Ivanova both kind of interrupted each other, and
Yeah.
they both said Marcus.
That
what
is
got
a
me.
heartbreaker, considering
That's what got me.
what Marcus.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Marcus and Franklin went through a lot together, but then with Ivanova chiming in too, even more profound the impact, how it was on her. And she's carried this guilt for 20 years now, and you can see it. It weighs like 20 pounds on her shoulders. And
But also it's right. I'm sorry, Char, but it's like right. The reason why it's because those two. It's right after, chronologically, when they filmed these. It was right after those two were talking about how Ivanova should
and
have
she
boffed
really
him
should
once.
have, yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. I
Right?
mean, honestly, I think actually, if
Yeah.
you haven't watched Sleeping in Light after deconstructing of Falling Stars, just once, watch it in that context. It is a different experience. It really is.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I mean, obviously, I know JMS know what he wanted, but how well things do fit together. Some things are a little. Like, I always thought when they're like, with Steven and Garibaldi, like, Steven, or Steven says to Garibaldi, are you going to go? I'm like, well, we may have had our differences. I'm like, I don't think anything. I think they're fine at this point, but okay. But yeah, and also, I don't know why Susan's a general and not an admiral. But again, little things, I can let it go. But I do love the way Delenn says Lanier, because she's almost saying it to herself. Because everyone else is giving a toast, but to Delenn, that is just her cry.
There's almost like a diss. She's like, he's the spirit of Lanier. What Lanier was, or who Lanier was a distant memory. Like, she was toasting who he was.
That's
not
a very
what he
good
became.
interpretation.
Right.
I think you're right.
But as far as like carrying torches, I think Veer talking about Londo. I mean, telling the Pakmara story.
Yeah.
Oh God,
no matter
breaks
what
my
he's
heart.
done, even after everything.
That's one of Stephen First's finest moments in Babylon 5. And I like how he pauses. He goes, I miss him. He's like, he's trying to convince himself, but he does. Through all the abuse that Veer got, he's like, he literally like sold out Veer, in order so that so Londo would get information. And he goes, why did you go? Because no one would, you're not important enough to kill.
You're important enough for me to lie to.
But all of that said and done, yeah, lie to, exactly. And all of that said and done, that Veer is the person, well, obviously he's the Emperor, but he's the person who he is today because of how hard Londo was on him. And I do like the fact that in the resolution of a lot of these characters that he's hopefully, in a better place.
I know we
can't talk about
at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we can't talk about everything, but like the 2 episodes before when Veer discovers the bug, and what are you going to do? No one knows you're the soft, and it's like, oh, can I help you, Veer? No, nothing. Just need to borrow this for a while. Good. Anyway, yes, I love Emperor Veer. My wife did enjoy seeing him because she was not a fan of deconstruction at all. She hates deconstruction as an ending, and so I was glad to like show her this one. It's like, no, this is the real ending to season 4 and to this series as well. So, but she also did like his final scene.
Where he and Zach is like,
and it's like
blind editing
Hello?
various legislation pieces, and Veer wants to go off with a woman, and Zach is like, no.
Well, you can't breed all the Centauri out of Centauri.
And I know he has an Emperor level hair now with Veer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the fashionable Cartagia hair, right? It's like you're back to like the glory of the Empire hair.
Where's the traditions? So what
but I think that. But there are probably the most powerful moments, I think, in acting. And because when they filmed it, it was the end for some of these actors that they thought they were going to see each other. Because even though that the toast scene is my favorite scene, the emotionally more powerful scene and the scene that crushes me is the Sunday morning drive scene.
Oh, boy.
Right? Because that's where these two characters... I've had this discussion with several of my friends in fandom, and they think that... The relationship between John Crichton and Aaron Sun in Farscape is a stronger relationship. And it's like that's all kind of like, flip sides of the same coin. And I might even agree with that, except for this one scene in Sleeping in Light where the two actors, where Boxleitner and Mira Furlan, they use that this is the end for us as the emotional drive between them and fuels their performance. It's a true goodbye, because that's the end of Sheridan and Delenn. You'd never see them together again in in that sense, because there is a dream sequence. You never see them again. And he walks away and she reaches for him and he doesn't turn around. He has to go. And she has to let him go, because this is his destiny. And that just cascades into all of the very big goodbyes and these huge cathartic releases that you have to have as a fan in order to gain some type of emotional peace with these characters. And I will say that Babylon 5 itself is one of those characters.
Is why later on seeing the station go up in flames is maybe just as powerful, but honestly, the point where I break is when Sheridan and Delenn say goodbye. There's that moment where Sheridan reaches out for her shoulder and she just breaks and sobs into his arms. That's when I break. That is the very moment that I break. That moment is so powerful with the music, with the acting. It all comes together so incredibly perfectly and powerfully that if you have any emotion inside you and any investment in these characters, how can you not?
Right, and then to see her, because this is generally speaking, that's about halfway through the episode. And as it's going through, then the shots of Delenn by herself in the bed, knowing that he's gone, and
reaching for the pillow, wrapping herself around it. Yeah.
But I also like how Sheridan meets his fate. He knows what's going to happen. And he meets his fate, and he goes back to the prophecy of when the long night comes.
There's a lot of controversy about what happened to Sheridan. We all know he died on Minbar.
Great
Way
job.
to bring that the biased newscasters in, right? Right. But it was neat to see him just like, you know what, I'm gonna go. Turn off all that damn noise, turn off everything, and I'm just going to be. And then Lorian's there, and he's like, it's time for you to go beyond the rim. And I think that takes on a larger context today because we've lost so many cast members in real life that we have to believe that they're beyond the rim, in a better place whole as people, especially, someone who was ravaged by cancer, Andreas Katsoulis, Michael O'Hare. I can name a lot of actors, and it's hard to. But I think at the very end, one of the scenes that really makes me break so hard is when Joe looks up.
Yeah.
Joe Michael Straczynski turns off the power.
Oh man!
In
if you're
Babylon
not crying
5.
by then.
And he said in several interviews, he's like, I had to do it. No one else could do it but me. I had to say goodbye in that way. But there are small things that happen too when they're like kind of going through Babylon 5 and seeing the Zocalo and kind of flashing back. But one small moment in particular I thought was just perfect, and that's when Garibaldi takes the shot glass off the bar.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It really is perfect.
Yeah, I just enjoy when everyone is leaving, because to me, Garibaldi, of course, has to be the last person, because he's, of those people there, the first person. So, yeah.
But Veer also gives his little wave, his little Veer wave.
But a shot glass. Right? Yep. That's perfect for Garibaldi.
Right.
And it just so happened to conveniently be there.
Well, yeah, because everything's
but we're gonna leave a
bones,
shot glass.
Right? But there's
sure.
one shot glass there.
But I think when the B5 was being, I don't know, exploded, imploded, whatever you do it in space. But anyway, decommissioned, and the music's swelling and exploding, you're like, man, this is bad. But then when you get the shot you've seen for 5 years of the loading cargo bay, that this establishment shot for like how many episodes just suddenly breaks apart, and you're like, that's it.
What really gets me is seeing all the alien ships from races all over that make up the Alliance giving Babylon 5 its final goodbye. They're there. Then they go off and Babylon 5 is no longer.
I'm sorry. Then you see kind of like the resolution of where these characters are going. You get to see, Ivanova becomes on La Shak Na because she is the one who will be. Right? That was the prophecy. Yeah, there was the one who was, the one who is, and the one who will be. And then you get to see, Veer and Zach. Zach is still there. Even Zach had a moment where it was what do they call it? Foreshadowed. He's like, I'll probably be here until till they shut the lights
that was
off
reverse foreshadowing.
There he was, right? Right, exactly, yeah. And then you see all the character moments with, Franklin doing what Franklin does. He's still kind of like taking care of
Garibaldi as a father. I think that is a challenge for him. I mean, and I'm sure he's doing it well because you can tell, but everything that he's gone through, I'm sure that was, there's a story. I'm sure that would have been fun to see him having to be like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm messed up. How am I going to mess up someone else? And
But that's the moment, like, look at the arc of his character, the gutter that he had to like crawl out of. And now he's doing something with his life that has purpose,
Right.
like real purpose. You know, not the Edgar's industry thing and not the corporation. Being a family man, something that he's always wanted, but he could never really get to, especially when you're doing with, when he went all the way back to Survivors with Kemmer. You know, he thought he found a family there, and then he just couldn't get out of his own alcoholism. You know, he couldn't get to that point, and now he's there. You know, and it's like, that's where you want these characters to end up. And even Ivanova says like, there are second chances
Right.
even for people like us. People like us. That goes all the way back to my reference of all these characters were flawed, but the second chance that Babylon 5 gave them allows them to become better people. You know, and that was the secret.
I was a little sad at no
the
point
end
episode
for me,
did anyone called Lynn Madam President, because anyway.
That would have been nice. It would have been nice. But
But,
bigger
sure.
things were at stake.
Yeah.
Going to just one more thing on Garibaldi, I think the fact that he actually had his chance at happiness with Lise and having a family, I don't want to say it saved him, but it kept him stable. It kept him from going back to the bottle yet again under the pressure of running a company and whatnot. It's what he ultimately really did want, like you said, Norm. And so, yes, I mean, although parenthood, I'm sure, because I'm not a parent, is incredibly difficult, I'm sure he embraced it. Also, side note, his kid is awesome. I mean, she is such the offspring of Garibaldi. It's not even funny. You know, talk is cheap. We'll see you on the court. Yeah, own that, mister. Look at what you created.
Shout out to Elizabeth Lockley for calling Lise
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
to come help Michael
Smart
in dire
lady.
straits.
Playing it off. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. But no, I really do think everybody kind of ends up where they need to. I love the fact that Ivanova ends up as the Entilza.
Yeah. I was wondered what you thought of her ending, being the retired, well, not retired, but being the old general no one likes to talk about. And then
I think because she was carrying so much grief in her life all those years, she lost her way. She was just kind of drifting from whatever to whatever assignment she could get. She was going through the motions of life. She wasn't really living anymore. And maybe, just maybe, being on Minbar with Delenn, heading up the An Lashak, maybe that renewed her sense of purpose. And maybe, just maybe, helped her come to a little bit of peace with all that could have been with Marcus. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too much, but I want to hope because I love her that much.
Is this part of our lost stories of Captain Ivanova?
This is that fanfic I need to write where she resolves her grief, and I've had it in my head for almost a year, and I just need to write the damn thing. Mm-hmm. But I fear that I won't do it justice, so I've not written a page.
I'd like to spend maybe a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, no.
On
which one?
Let's.
Because there's two.
Yeah.
There's the we've not realized we've been watching a documentary from An Lashak Society, and I did not pause to watch it this time, but that was cool when I had it on VCR. To
Absolutely,
watch it.
yeah.
But yeah, the credits again, especially with the season 5 opening. I mean, the opening credits of this episode because it's in season 5. But then to get the closing credits of first appearance and last appearance of mostly every character.
That's, to me, that's where it really hit home how far some of these characters have come. You know, when you got to see, well, for all intents and purposes, Riker No Beard to Riker Beard, with Sheridan, right? But with all of those characters, I loved seeing Jakar with the eye patch, because that's the last, old grizzly, the bodyguard Jakar, and in the context of what people thought that was versus the context of what it actually was. And then seeing that, oh man, old grizzled Londo as Emperor, from just flippant, joyously, it's like, Mr. Garibaldi, that guy. And all of a sudden he's like, I have no choice. So those kind of, well, then there was Marcus, of course. Marcus with Marcus, and Marcus with life.
His cemetery, or
stabilized Marcus,
Marcus cryopreserved, as I recall.
But seeing those characters, and especially when you've gone through the series and watched all 5 seasons and understand the context of these characters, seeing them in that way, you're just you take a step back and you're like, wow, these characters have come so far and we've invested so much of ourselves in them that this is the last time are we going to see them? And it really feels like it's the last time again. Every time I go through my rewatch, I'm like, I know what's coming up, but I can't help myself. It doesn't matter because the emotional content is always still there.
That's what really throws me is just how powerful it is. Still, it has such gravitas. And even just some of the best made series finales don't quite measure up to it. I don't know if it's just because I've watched Babylon 5 that much. Or is it just because we're that invested in the characters and the story's so well told? It ascends.
Well, Norm, you are the guest. Final thoughts or final comments of season 5 of Babylon 5?
Well, the only thing I really want to say is, first of all, thank you for having me on because it's given me a chance to actually get a lot of Babylon 5 passion out of me, and actually
thank you so
in
much
spoken
for being
form.
Here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I wanted to at least give a different perspective on season 5 because season 5 in the fandom of Babylon 5 is probably the least enjoyed season or maybe the least respected season. It is. But there are a lot of factors that kind of played against it. And I think much like some other series that I've watched, like Enterprise, for example, Star Trek Enterprise, a lot of fans kind of heap a lot of their disappointment on it. And I think they do it, I wouldn't say irresponsibly, but disingenuously, because looking at the context of the story, this story had to be told. Now, yes, some parts of the story could have been better. Some parts could have been executed a little bit better. But at the same time, hindsight being 2020, take a look at what they had to do to resolve a lot of some of these smaller threads. And I think they did that really well. I think the performances were great. I think some of the standalone episodes were really great. And I think obviously the resolution with Sleeping in Light takes on a greater context after all of the character arcs and goodbyes in the 5th season, especially with the last 2 technical episodes, Objects in Motion and Objects in Rest. So I just want to give people, or hope I gave people, food for thought about looking at season 5 again from a different perspective. Maybe time has healed some of those wounds. I'm not going to say it has for everybody, but at least take a look at it from not ending at season 4. They attempted to do the best they could with as rushed of a production schedule as they had to get it to TNT in order to make a September release for the fall season. There were some missteps. I'm not going to say that there weren't, but I think there were better successes and better victories than there were missteps. And for that reason, that's why I championed this season, because I would rather have had a 5th season with a couple of missteps than no 5th season at all and having it end abruptly with the 4th season.
Now, Char, we've talked prior that apart from Sleeping in Light, we were sort of like, maybe we could have done without season 5. So after hearing Norm's presentation here and rewatching it, what are your thoughts now on season 5?
Going through the rewatch has been a very good exercise because my perspective has changed so much regarding season 5. When I first watched it, there were definitely hits and misses. There's episodes I definitely appreciate more than others. And I think if you would have asked me this question 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, you could probably end at season 4 if you want to end on a really intense note, and you're going to get the gist of the story and it'll be fine. Now I say, don't do that. Season 5 has a lot to offer. Not everything is fantastic, but if you're a fan of this show, there's a lot that you don't want to miss. And so in the end, it's absolutely worth it. Whether it's for standalones, like A View from the Gallery and Day of the Dead, or even if it's just watching things like Sheridan and Delenn settling into marriage. That's something I really appreciate. It's true to life. Things like Garibaldi's alcoholism. That's an arc you don't want to miss. And then the last few episodes, the arc leading up to the very end, man, you miss that. You're missing a lot. So season 5 overall has a lot to offer. And you know what? I've watched it a few times now since undergoing this rewatch. And I get more and more out of it every time. And when I get to the end, I'm kind of like Franklin when he was coming off of stims and he's like, I want to do it all again. So that's me. That's what I'm doing is I'm just watching Babylon 5 over and over again.
Okay. I worried you were getting into stems. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Char's on Walkabout, people. So
yeah, I think, and maybe I'm fighting this too hard because I always say he's not my favorite character, but, so maybe I just need to say he's my favorite character because I keep fighting it. But Londo, I mean, season 5, he needs that story told. I mean, my argument is Babylon 5 is basically Londo's story. I'm not saying he's in every episode or he's in every story, but he's almost the whole story, his arc of where he's going. And he needs this season 5 to get to that to the redemption, the forgiveness, the reconciliation, but then the darkness and the, where I suppose he always was headed, unfortunately. But then again, I don't know, a bit of redemption at the end because, he does what needs to be done. Veer rises from the ashes. And so I definitely think season 5 is needed for him, who has sort of weaved throughout this whole 5 seasons and other characters as well. But that's always the standout one for me. So, Norm, if people want to hear more about why season 5 deserves to be watched in equal standing with all the other seasons, where can they chat with you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me in a couple different places. First of all, I am one of the co-founders and co-hosts on the Fandom Podcast Network, where I host several shows, one of which is a Highlander fandom-based podcast called Blood of Kings. So you can find us on the Fandom Podcast Network online. And I also host a show called Discoville, where we talk about Star Trek Discovery and the Orville almost in equal measure. So that's where I spend the majority of my time, but you can also find me on Twitter at Starfighter1701, and you can find me on Instagram at SoCal Swordfighter. That's like Southern California Swordfighter, because that's what I do. I'm a Southern Californian, and I sword fight. So.
Now, Char, if people want to know about our next episode, where we will tackle the B5 movies of, let's see if I can do this off the top of my head, In the Beginning, Third Space, A Call to Arms, and Lost Tales, I believe I got them all, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me co-hosting Punch It with Tristan Riddell here on the Nerd Party Network. We do a lot of writing in Star Trek types of things and occasionally go on an away mission, but mostly it's Star Trek. You've been on a couple of times, Philip. We've written Babylon 5 stories on the fly if people want more Babylon 5. But otherwise, hit me up on Twitter, and my handle is the Profanity. Let's talk about Babylon 5.
And if people want to talk to me about a Babylon 5 action figure I'll have to order this month in celebration of finishing season 5, they can reach me at NC Public Servant. I'm also on the network here, talking Star Trek each and every week with Darren Moser and Daniel Prue on City Alpha 3, and talking the wonderful world of Doctor Who, both new and classic, every week with my wife on Time and Space, a Doctor Who podcast. Well, guys, the ceremony's about to begin, so it's time to leave. If you want to get your shot glasses, you can, but it's time to say goodbye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.